From humble beginnings, just 12 beds in a small rented home in Cape Girardeau, to the region's largest healthcare provider. This is the story of St. Francis Healthcare System, 150 years of faithful care.
It exemplifies the human spirit. This idea that we had this bustling, pioneering town that existed 150 years ago that needed both education and healthcare, that 3 vowed religious women really took off on this journey and arrived here to provide care for people they didn't know. And they did so in a way that was a ministry.
This is St. Francis Healthcare System today. They're the largest employer in the region, and in the past year alone, they've helped nearly 175,000 patients. But how did we get here?
St. Francis started in 1875 at the request of the local parish of St. Mary's. At the time, Cape Girardeau had no hospital and services were needed. 3 sisters boarded a steamboat and literally departed St. Louis and landed at Cape Girardeau, and within days had established in a small house with 12 beds.
Just 10 years after the end of the Civil War, the 3 sisters arrived in Cape Girardeau at the request of Father Joseph Schmidt of St. Mary's Parish.
The order of sisters that came, the Franciscan sisters, the Daughters of the Sacred Hearts of Jesus and Mary, they were called to this area as a result of a population that was persecuted in Germany. Over 1 million Germans emigrated, many to the United States. For whatever reason, they decided that Southeast Missouri was a great place to be.
They were sort of expelled from Germany. They were being persecuted by the Kulturkampf. The sisters came here, and I think what motivated them was love of the sick and their desire to be the healing presence of the Lord.
When we look at Cape Girardeau itself, it was a very multicultural community as compared to today, and that was really the case for all of Southeast Missouri. You were as likely to hear German and some French as much as you were to hear English on our streets. You had a variety of boat traffic coming and going, and really all the commerce came through the Cape Girardeau area. It was a much more primitive time for medicine, and they were as anxious to care for someone's spiritual needs as their physical needs. But those physical needs were still very prevalent. In fact, we know in early locations for St. Francis, without running water, the sisters had to borrow water from the neighbor's well. And you can imagine those early mornings in the wintertime where they would have to break ice in order to provide water for their patients.
They had no electricity, no lights, no running water. They did everything by hand, but they were compelled by love and sacrifice. And the institution that is here today is built on that love and sacrifice of the sisters.
Their first location was located in downtown Cape Girardeau on Themis Street, very near where today's Burritoville is located. Very quickly, they outgrew that location. We know from early records that as soon as they opened the doors to the community, the hospital was full. And at that period of time, hospitals were really intended for individuals that did not have family or friends to care for them. So it was very much a mission-minded organization from the beginning.
From the very beginning, the sisters proved both tireless and fearless, often risking their own lives in support of the sick and injured.
Sister Grayman, in 1878, ventured into Memphis in the height of the yellow fever epidemic that summer. She came with 3 additional sisters from St. Francis. All 4 of them were ill with yellow fever. That year, we think that there was about a 20% mortality rate.
In 1878, St. Francis moved to this location at the corner of Sprigg and William Streets in Cape Girardeau. Just 8 years later, in 1886, the steamboat La Muscat exploded near Cape.
Many of the passengers were scalded, thrown into the water. Many of them were brought to St. Francis. And at that point in time, the sisters put a call out, and we saw the entire community bringing blankets and medications that they had, and everybody rallied for the cause.
In 1901, the first surgery room was added at St. Francis. Electric lights would not be installed until 7 years later. Then, in 1913, ground was broken for a new hospital on Good Hope Street.
Not too far after that, we had the Spanish flu epidemic in 1918 and 1919 in this area. We saw that followed in the 40s and the 50s with polio. The polio epidemic in Missouri was particularly bad in 1949. We saw, once again, St. Francis rise to the occasion by opening the only polio unit within the region. The St. Francis polio unit was open all the way through 1962 when the vaccines came available because of Dr. Salk.
By the 1970s, St. Francis had outgrown the hospital on Good Hope.
It was a wonderful place. It was very majestic with its marble floors, and it was always glistening because of the sisters. We couldn't deliver all the services that the community needed, and we were at capacity or over capacity. We even had patients in the halls, and a lot of our beds were wards.
In 1976, a new hospital was dedicated on Gordonville Road. St. Francis changed its name to St. Francis Medical Center.
When we moved out here, I think there were cattle pastures across the street.
When I was a little boy, we rode horses where St. Francis now is. We kept our horses in Arena Park. Independence was a gravel road. All of this was just hills and ravines, dense brush. We'd come up here and play hide and seek and chase things. We had fun.
When we moved out here, we had semi-private rooms with the toe-to-toe concept. Sister Virgilia was very adamant that we have toe-to-toe concept to give the patient more privacy and also to enable the caregivers better access to the patients. The greatest thing is her concept was that we have supplies at the bedside for the patient, that nurses and respiratory therapists and other caregivers shouldn't be running for supplies, that they be there at the bedside so we could spend more times with the patient. So I would say that Sister Virgilia and the board had a lot of foresight in this site. It was actually built on a hope, faith, and a prayer, literally, because we didn't have a lot of money then.
You know, when I started at St. Francis, we used glass syringes. We did not have anything disposable. And one of my main jobs that I had to check all those needles after cases and make sure there were no burrs on them. And people have no idea what it was like. We washed our gloves. We would wash them and we would check them to make sure there weren't any holes in them. And then we would powder them and re-sterilize them. We made our sterile water. When St. Francis moved from Good Hope to this medical center, it was a huge change.
Today, St. Francis Healthcare System employs more than 3,100 people, including more than 400 doctors and advanced practice providers, many with strong ties to Southeast Missouri.
When I first came to town, I took care of a patient in their late 90s who had, as a child in the early 1900s, had their appendix out in their kitchen in Oran by my great-grandfather Westcote. When they were in their 40s, she had had her gallbladder out by my grandfather, and in her 50s, 60s had had an ankle fracture repaired by my father. And then I unfortunately took care of them for a hip fracture. Technology shifts through the ages. My grandfather gave the first dose of penicillin in Southeast Missouri. My father did the first total hip and total knee. For me, when I came out, we were being subjected to MRIs because there was no such thing as MRI, and they needed to know what relatively normal shoulders and knees looked like. So all of that's new.
We have continued to be at the leading edge of quality care with programs that we can provide to the local community.
And what I can say is that we have physicians present at St. Francis who have trained around the country and around the world. We have a vast majority of our physicians have ties to Southeast Missouri.
We've been here for 150 years now. That's why we're here talking today. There's not any other hospital in the area that can say that. And you know, it's more than just longevity, it's what have we done.
I think most people will be surprised by the complexity of care that we are able to deliver. And I think they'd be impressed by the clinical quality and patient safety that exists.
Sometimes even the doctors themselves are surprised at the level of care they're able to provide.
and I saw it was clear he had acute leukemia. And that was probably what led to his heart attack. So with that, I called Washington University, called the great Ed Reinard at Barnes. I said, I have this patient who's had a heart attack. And Dr. Reinard says, Stan, I've looked at your credentials. You're board certified in hematology. You can do just as well in CAPE as I can at Barnes. I had to parse through that.
We have high-quality physicians. We have excellent results. I think our outcomes, a lot of it are measure-based, and our outcomes are as good as any place in the country.
I chose St. Francis because of the level 3 NICU. And I like caring for the mom, and it was very important to me that if I had a baby that needed neonatology, they were readily available.
I can't imagine being in another place where I would have the opportunity to work with others in developing a neuroscience program, including neurosurgery, open heart program, starting a trauma center.
Expanded services were such as open heart, OB, a neonatal intensive care unit, staffed by board-certified neonatologists that kept very critical babies much closer to home. The only designated trauma center between St. Louis and Memphis that certainly was saving lives, and the creation of a cancer services product line with radiation oncology, just to name some of the services.
These doctors are amazing, and I know a lot of folks might think they need to go somewhere else, but they don't. They have the care, the quality right here at St. Francis.
It has been one of real joy being able to take care of patients, solve problems for them, help them get better.
I would let any of my partners take care of me. We're really blessed to have the partners, the mid-levels and the midwives that we have.
But working with the people in the lab, people in X-ray, that's been one of the real gems for me.
I mean, our nurses are amazing. We have some of the most experienced nurses, and if I were the patient, I would want a nurse that had seen what I was dealing with before. You know, everything is always to be as planned, but when it doesn't go that way, you want an experienced nurse that's taking care of you, that's seen that and done that before and knows how to take care of you.
We work as a great team. We respect each other, we respect each other's roles and jobs and the education and the knowledge we bring to each department we work in.
I have a little bit of a luxury because I work with these nurses day in, day out with my patients, and so we develop a fantastic working relationship and trust between us.
We are truly the front line for our patients. We're the patient's voice. You know, we're the first line of defense when something's going wrong. We're the one that sees them. The nurses run it.
In 2015, St. Francis completed their $127 million Building on Excellence multi-phase expansion, which included a new patient tower equipped with new technology to enhance patient care.
And after the groundbreaking, the canopy and the water fountain needed to be demolished. And our very talented construction men carefully removed the statue of St. Francis of Assisi so that it could be refurbished and protected during the construction. And once that beautiful water feature that we currently have with its flowing water and lights at night was completed, these same men carefully put the statue in a very prominent position on the water feature. St. Francis of Assisi statue has been part of St. Francis since 1880.
St. Francis was founded as a Catholic mission, and today the Christian mission continues.
Core to our heritage and our identity is a relationship that we have with the diocese.
All Catholic institutions, they work under the name of the bishop. But I've never run a hospital. I don't plan on running a hospital, so I leave that up to the good people that are in their places of administration to do that.
So you come in and you feel the presence of the divine. Like when patients come and they feel welcomed, they feel seen and noticed, they feel like somebody really cares. And I think for me, if I was a patient here and I came in and somebody said, I know you by name, you matter here, you come first, and I'm given the best, that for me is healing.
On October 4th, which is the Feast of St. Francis, in 1993, St. Francis started perpetual adoration. And what that means is that in the chapel here on campus, there are people that are praying 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's 32 years of doing this. And they're doing it in front of the Blessed Sacrament, which is the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Christ. I believe that's the engine of the ministry. The coincidences, the good fortune.
We seek to heal the whole person. While we typically offer opportunities for cures, we believe there's only one physician, the great physician, that can extend healing. And in doing so, sometimes in private moments, we can be a conduit of that.
I think the people of Southeast Missouri have remained remarkably constant in their determined, durable nature, by and large very hardworking, compassionate about their families. They are, by and large, people of faith, now many different faiths in this area, but pretty passionate about it by and large.
The original order of Franciscan Sisters, the Daughters of the Sacred Hearts of Jesus and Mary, ran St. Francis Hospital for the first 118 years of its existence.
I can tell you as a young man, I was terrified of the stoic, quiet nature of the nuns. They seemed very intimidating, and now I see it in my older age as a sign of peace and compassion and love. Yeah, they terrified me. Sister Virgilia, I cut my big toe off. My mom hauled me up the back wrought iron steps, bleeding, and I'm crying, and my mom goes to find my dad, and she says, "Young man, stop crying. You're gonna embarrass your father." Like, that was it. I was done.
When you face Sister Goretti, Sister Virgilia was pretty easy. And we had others. I remember Sister Maureen and a bunch of others. You better have your stuff together if you're going to talk to Sister Goretti.
Sister Virgilia, she was bigger than life. I don't think she ever slept. In fact, there were some rumors that she didn't sleep. She was everywhere and a very quiet individual. She would listen, and you could tell she was listening because all of a sudden you heard your words repeated to you.
Sister Virgilia said to me, "How would you like the operating room?" And I said, "Oh, sister, I don't have operating room experience. I've been working on a surgical floor." And she said, "How much did you have in nursing school?" And I said, "I had 3 months." She said, "That's all you need. You start in the morning." There was no discussion of pay. There was no discussion of benefits. I was being given something, and it was a gift. I went home and cried because I was pretty overwhelmed with things. I made it 47 years. When we were in the field and a surgeon would ask for a suture at the old hospital, the circulating nurse or sister, and most of the time it was sister, she'd come up and she'd say, "Let me see how much you got left." You could have an opening like this, and she'd say, "I think you can get another stitch out of that." And she would not give him a suture until he did.
The sisters demanded that people put their best effort forth because it wasn't just a job punching a clock, it was caring for a human being. And that has carried through to everything we do. The last Franciscan sister of our founding order, Sister Jane Ann Kiefer, I would see her in the hallway every day. She'd been retired for 20 years and she was still here every day, greeting people, encountering people, handing out medals.
In 2022, 5 Catholic sisters returned to St. Francis Healthcare. This time, it was the Order of the Little Sisters of St. Francis.
I do pastoral care, the emotional, spiritual support of patients. I make a difference to a patient, to a family, or to a colleague. The fact that I'm here and I can share a smile, I can hold someone's hand and say, "You are not alone, St. Francis is here."
Patients love them, we love them. They are so genuinely sweet and kind and caring, and we love when we see them walk through our departments.
The combination of world-class care, along with a commitment to the spiritual and emotional needs of patients, has led to impressive outcomes.
Medicine has changed dramatically. The things we can do, the way we can alter people's immune system to fight cancer, thyroid disease, now hopefully diabetes soon. There's all kinds of great things that have changed since I came out.
The old breed of doctors like me weren't trained nearly as well as these new, young medical oncologists and also hematologists.
But ultimately, the training coupled with the technology has provided amazing capabilities for our patients.
We're fortunate that over the last 4 rating periods, the Leapfrog organization has rated St. Francis with a Leapfrog score of A. There are only 11 hospitals in the state of Missouri, and very few in bordering states, if any at all, that have attained this quality and patient safety rating.
The awards and recognition St. Francis has received throughout the years are a reflection of their commitment to delivering world-class patient care close to home.
I really like not saying no to patients. My training allows me to take care of you from birth to death.
We're lucky because we are still a locally based healthcare institution that's vibrant. There's not many in the country like us.
Today we provide care across over 23 counties. Our medical facility in Cape Girardeau is licensed for 306 beds. We deliver care to literally hundreds of thousands of patients a year. Over the last 12 months, we've touched more individual patients than any time in our history. St. Francis does not exist without the high caliber and expertise of the physicians, of our staff, of advanced practice providers. But ultimately, it doesn't exist if not for our patients.
I've been a patient of St. Francis almost my entire life. I was diagnosed with breast cancer approximately 4 years ago. I never in my wildest dreams thought I would have cancer. And when that word came out of the doctor's mouth, I was in shock. I think the most difficult part is the unknown. St. Francis was here for me through my journey, and I'm happy to say that I'm cancer-free.
Through the years, St. Francis has never lost sight of their role in the communities they serve. The Friends of St. Francis is a fundraising and volunteer organization that supports the mission of St. Francis Healthcare System by raising funds for various community outreach and patient care programs, such as scholarships, food assistance for children, and cardiac and cancer care patient support funds.
I started with some cardiac issues in January of last year. They put a heart monitor on me and had to have a pacemaker put in February. From there, Dr. Glasscock wanted to do an ablation to try to control the AFib. And the CT scan prior to the ablation showed that I had a mass on my lung. I'm like, okay. I mean, you know, what do you say to that? The financial part, because I wasn't able to work, was very helpful because the drop in income is quite devastating along with everything else. So I think I have received exceptional care here at St. Francis. They've all been great. I would have no complaints at all.
Before COVID, I was having all kinds of issues with my heart. I could not sleep. I was feeling anxious. I was feeling a very tense time. And my blood pressure was high, and I knew there was a problem, so I did a bunch of tests through Cape Cardiology because I had a problem. I had a serious problem, and it was a life-threatening problem. Getting me into the hospital and having this done during COVID was a major situation. I really feel like I'm part of the St. Francis family. And I also must say that goes for my wife too. My wife is my caregiver. She is a very important part of my recovery too. In addition to everyone at St. Francis who's been very cooperative and very helpful and have just always been where I needed them. Well, right now I have 3 days a week, cardiac rehab. And by the way, the nurses here are wonderful. They watch over you. They make sure you're doing everything right. I'm retired, obviously on a fixed income. So this helps me and helps my family a lot. I don't think I would be here today if it were not for Dr. Wynn and Dr. Stipes. Everyone who's affiliated with St. Francis wants to find the answer, the correct answer to help someone. There's so much good around here that I feel like a lot of it is right here in Cape Girardeau at St. Francis. We don't have to go anywhere else. This is it. This is the place to be. And I just feel like it's probably the best investment in our area because it heals people.
St. Francis Healthcare System, serving America's heartland through 2 world wars, a Great Depression, and 28 U.S. presidents, providing a ministry of healing, wellness, quality, and love, inspired by faith in Jesus Christ for 150 years.
It's pretty demanding and it's very time consuming because people get sick in all hours of the night, but to me, I never have a problem waking up in the middle of the night or early in the morning to take care of people because the outcome is so rewarding.
Over the last 150 years, this institution, its previous locations, its current locations throughout the region exist to serve. There is no other industry where a complete stranger will go into a small room with one exit and disrobe in front of a stranger and say, here are my fears, these are the concerns I have for tomorrow, and this is how I need your help.
St. Paul said that love never ends, and I think we see that those first sisters that came here, their love and their sacrifice has built this institution today.
I get to come to work and carry on a mission that St. Francis started 150 years ago.
The word that defines St. Francis to me is dedication.
I just want to say that I'm so proud to be a part of the St. Francis family.
They will always have my support and a very special place in my heart.
I've had the great fortune to work with a lot of good people, and I had people who were there through the best times in my life and some of the hardest times of my life.
Be proud that you are an employee of St. Francis. Times can be tough and everything, but you always should be proud of the job that you're doing.
It was quite impressive where we came from.